Masechet Sanhedrin, Daf Tet. We are dealing with the machloket between Chachamim and Rabbi Meir about how many judges do you need for a case of Mosi Shem Ra. If a husband comes after the wedding night and he says, there was no dam bitulim, so he's claiming definitely a monetary claim against her. He doesn't want to pay the 200 zuz in the ketubah for a bitula, but rather he wants to decrease it by 100. So for that, you would need just 3 judges. However, there is a capital punishment involved if he has witnesses that saw that she sinned with another man after the Kiddushin, and then it would be a capital case and it would require 23. So far we saw 4 interpretations about why Rabbi Meir and Chachamim are disagreeing. Well, that Chachamim say you need 23 and Rabbi Meir says you need 3. Today we're going to see 4 other interpretations. So here is number 5. Rav Ashi Amar, kegon datru be malkot, vela atru be ketala. In order to give someone capital punishment, there has to be a warning. And the warning has to say that you are going to get capital punishment. Yesterday we saw machloket about whether they actually have to say what type of capital punishment. Generally for adultery it would be chenek. But here we're talking about a case where the witness, someone gave a warning. However, they gave the wrong warning, a lower level, and they said it's just you're going to get lashes. So they saw her after Kiddushin with her husband. They saw her about to sin with a man, and they said, don't do that. It's a sin. And if you do that, then you're going to get malkut. Now, malkut is a general punishment for alav, for something that you're not allowed to do. But it's a lower level than a death penalty. And they did not tell her that she would get the death penalty. Now, does she get what happens in that case? Does she get lashes? So the answer, there is an opinion, there's a machloket about this elsewhere. We're following the opinion that yes, she would get lashes. You can't give her the death penalty because she wasn't warned about that. She says, I didn't know. If you told me it was a death penalty, I would have stopped. But they only said that it was lashes. So let's assume that she does get lashes because, she did sin and she was warned about lashes, so she gets lashes. Vekami palgi beplukta de Rabbi Yishmael v'Rabbanan ditnan makot b'shlosha mishum Rabbi Yishmael amru be'asrim u'shlosha. However, there's a machloket within our Mishnah about how many judges one needs for lashes. So the first opinion, Rabbanan say just 3 judges. So Rabbi Meir would follow the Tanakama in this Mishnah, and that's why he requires 3 judges here. Whereas in the name of Rabbi Yishmael, they said that for lashes you need 23 judges. And so Chachamim, who say regarding Mosi Shemra that you need 23, they're talking about a case like this. This is a big okimta, that our Mishnah is only talking about a case where they gave a warning for lashes, but not for capital punishment. But even lashes, which you would give her, requires 23 according to Chachamim, and that is the essence of their machloket. Okay, possibility number 6. Ravina Amar, Kegon shenimsa ehad min ha'edim karov o pasul. Ravina says, talking about a case where, let's say you have a few witnesses, maybe 3 witnesses, and one of them ends up being a relative or an invalid witness. So when you have if you have a group of 2 and one of them is invalid, well then you only have 1 left, which is clearly not enough. So then clearly you would not hold the person liable. But let's say there's 3 or more witnesses and one of them is found to be invalid, so then you could kick him off and leave the other 2. 2 by themselves would be sufficient. Do we say that? Or do we say, since they came as a group of 3, if any one of them becomes invalid, then the whole group gets excluded? So this is the subject of a machloket. We're going to match up Rabbi Meir and Chachamim with the machloket between Rabbi Yosef and Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, who argue within the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. Okay, so we're going to quote a lengthy Mishnah from Masechet Makot in order to figure out what this machloket is going to be, but in the end, we will align it with Rabbi Meir and Chachamim here regarding 3 or 23. Ditnan. Rabbi Akiva Omer, Lo b'hashilishi ela lachmir alav lasot edino kayoseh be'elu. The Mishnah is dealing with the pasuk that says, based on 2 or 3 witnesses, that's when a matter is established. You need 2 or 3 witnesses in order to find guilt. Question is, why does the pasuk say 2 or 3 witnesses? 2 witnesses is sufficient, even for the highest level of capital punishment. So why is the Torah bother saying 2 or 3? Just say 2. Rabbi Akiva explains that it says 2 or 3 to be stringent, that the third one will get the same punishment as the first 2 if they are found to be edim zomimim. In other words, 3 people come in and they say, we saw this person commit a crime. Turns out that they weren't in that place at that time. They couldn't have seen it. So the third one that came to testify, maybe he could say, listen, don't kill me. Let's say there was a murder, right? So the edim zomimim, they get killed. They get the same punishment as they were going to give. And so the third one could say, listen, you would have killed him based on the testimony of just the first 2 witnesses that came in and testified. So leave me out of it. Rabbi Akiva says, no, that's why it says 2 or 3, or however many. If they came in and they testified together, and then they're found to be all edim zomimim, they all get the punishment, even though we would have punished the person anyway if there were only 2. אם כן, ענה שכתוב את הנטפל לעובדי עבירה כעובדי עבירה, על אחת כמה וכמה שישלם שכר את הנטפל לעושה מצווה כעושה מצווה. And then we make a tangent to a nice Musad lesson. If the pasuk punishes someone who's just an accessory to a crime, like he did the crime, here in this case, the crime is testifying falsely. And the first 2 that came in, they're the main people that committed the crime because they're the first 2 that testified falsely and would have caused a person, this poor defendant, to be killed if it's a capital case. So they're the main perpetrators. The third one came and just joined them. This is, I'll testify too. They were all lying. So the third one, who was only an accessory to the crime, still gets the same punishment as the main perpetrators of the crime. If that's true, then all the more so the other way around, because generally reward is greater than punishment. So imagine the reward of someone who's an accessory to a mitzvah will be also like the same as one who does a mitzvah. The reward will be greater for doing mitzvah than for doing a crime. But the point is, if 2 people are going, one person, whatever, someone is going to do a mitzvah, and you tag along. You're not doing the mitzvah yourself, but you give them a lift, you help out in some way, then you are considered the accessory to the mitzvah, is given the reward just like the one who does the mitzvah itself. So that's nice musar to always try to, even if you can't do the mitzvah yourself, to be an accessory to it. Now back to our subject. מה שניים נמצא אחד מהן קרוב או פסול עדותן בטלה, אף שלושה נמצא אחד מהן קרוב או פסול עדותן בטלה. Another thing that we can learn from the pasuk that says 2 or 3 is that it's equating 2 and 3. Just like with 2, if 2 people come testify, it turns out that one of them is a relative or is invalid, then you throw out the pair because one witness left can't do anything. So too, we learn from the pasuk that equates 2 equals 3, that if 3 people come in and testify about something, and one of them turns out is a relative or is an invalid witness, then we throw out the whole group, even though there are technically 2 left that could testify. No, we throw them out. And even if it's 100, imagine that 100 people saw a murder, and they all come in and they all testify. One of them turns out he is a gambler. Well, in that case, it's because they all came together as a group. It's not different groups of witnesses. Since they all came together as a group, and one of them is no good, then we throw out the whole thing. All that is the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. Now we have a machloket within Rabbi Akiva. Amar Rabbi Yosef, b'meh debim amorim b'dinei nefashot, aber b'dinei monot titkayem edut b'sha'ar. Rabbi Yosef says, when do we throw out the whole thing if one of the witnesses is no good? That's only in a capital punishment case. Because in general, in the capital punishment case, we're always looking for leniency. We don't want to kill someone. We don't want to give someone capital punishment. So we look for any way out. And therefore, we say, if there's 100 people, one of them is no good, all the rest of the 99, we throw out as well. That's true in a capital case. However, in a monetary case, if 3 people come in and say, we saw that this person stole from that person, one of the witnesses turns out to be invalid, we throw that one witness out, but we leave the other 2 because we have to be totally fair in a monetary case. being lenient and to one side is stringent to the other side would simply be unfair. That's the opinion of Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Omer, echad dinei mamodot ve'echad dinei nefashot. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi disagrees and says, no, it doesn't matter, both for monetary and for capital cases. If one of the group is invalid, then the whole group is thrown out. That's just the law. This is a law of testimony that the whole group has to be valid witnesses. Ve'ematai. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi disagrees about another point also against Rabbi Yosef. בזמן שהתרו בהן, אבל בזמן שלא התרו בהן, מה יעשו שני אחים ואחד שראו באחד שהרג את הנפש? When do we throw out a whole group if one of them it turns out to be invalid? Only if they all testified, right? Everybody in that group, let's say is 3 people, the 3 people gave a warning also. So according to the B, only if there's 3 people that saw a crime. All 3 of them gave a warning. Don't do that crime or else you're going to get this punishment. And then they come in, and one of them turns out to be invalid, then we throw out the whole group, whether it's capital or a monetary case. But that's only if they all gave a warning. But if some of them did not give a warning, then they would not all be thrown out. Let's say 1 or 2 of them gave a warning, but the third one didn't. And that third one turns out to be invalid. So then we just we'd leave him off. In other words, he's not considered part of the group. If all 3 gave a warning, giving the warning makes them into one group, and therefore, if part of the group is invalid, we have to throw out the whole thing. But maybe there's a lot of people that saw it, but only 2 people gave a warning, and all the rest of the 98 people did not give a warning. So what makes them a group? It was they didn't give a warning together. So if they all come to Bet Din, and turns out some of them are invalid, well, we'll throw out those invalid ones, but the rest of them we can keep, and we'll make a new group with the rest of them. And you can always throw out those who did not give a warning. After all, it has to be so, because otherwise, imagine if you have 2 brothers and someone not related, 3 people that saw a murder. Now, they all saw it. They happened to be there and seeing it. So now, well, since 2 of them are brothers, are you going to say, oh, look, the 2 brothers are invalid because they're related to each other, the 2 of the witnesses. So, since you throw out one of them, now you throw out the whole thing. So that means any murder that's done in front of 2 brothers, the guy could get away with it. Well, then everybody's going to get away with things. They're just going to find, 2 brothers are around, commit a murder in front of them, and see, they're a group, and one of them is invalid, then you're going to throw out the whole thing. That would be crazy. And therefore, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi argues that as long as they didn't give a warning. So imagine, these 2 brothers, they didn't give the warning. They were just there seeing it. Someone else gave the warning. That's fine. Then we'll take one of the brothers and leave the other one out. One brother is fine, and the other person that witnessed it that is not related, and then you have 2 witnesses. And so it has to be that way. And that's according to the Biyoseh. That's how you can have 2, even though there's 2 brothers there, you can still give someone capital punishment by leaving out one of the brothers. Now, all that was background for explaining the machloket according to this answer. This Mishnah is talking about a case where a woman was with another man after Kiddushin, and she committed that sin of adultery in front of 2 brothers and a third person who's not related. The one of the brothers, at least, is not the one that gave the warning. According to the Yehuda Nasi, because both brothers did not give the warning, so even though one of them is invalid, we can ignore that one of the brothers, and then the other brother with that other stranger can testify that the sin occurred, and therefore that would be a case of capital punishment. So the Rabbanan, who say you need 23 judges, they are following Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. However, Rabbi Yosef disagrees with that, and he says it doesn't matter who's giving the warning or not giving the warning. If among the group of people that came to testify there is one who is invalid, and if in this case it's 2 brothers, so one of them is invalid, then we throw the entire testimony out, and therefore there's no capital case, and that would be the opinion of Rabbi Yosef, who says you only need 3 judges. All right, that was the 6th answer. 7th answer. Ve'i ba'ayetema, kigon, she'itru ba'acherim ve'lo hitru ba'ayedim, ve'kami palge bepluktat Rabbi Yosef v'Rabbanan ditnan. Rabbi Yosef omer l'olam eno neherag ad shehu pi shene ayadav matrin bo, shene'emad al pi shenayim ayedim. So the 7th possibility is that the Mishnah is talking about a case where other people warned him, but not the witnesses. There was some people that warned him, but then whatever, they weren't watching, and they walked away. And then other people are the ones that actually saw the crime and testified about it. And this would be subject to the machloket between Rabbi Yosef and Rabbanan, as we see in a Mishnah in Masechet Makot. Rabbi Yosef says that we do not kill a defendant who would be guilty of capital punishment based on two witnesses, unless those two witnesses are also the people who gave a warning. As the pasuk says, al pi, based on the mouth of two witnesses. The mouth literally in Peshat means their testimony, but here Rabbi Yosef takes it to mean their warning. And therefore, in a case where she sinned with another man after Kiddushin, and someone gave her a warning, but other people were the witnesses, if we follow the opinion of Rabbi Yosef, there's no capital punishment, and that is the opinion of Rabbi Meir, who says you only need 3 judges. However, Chachamim disagree with Rabbi Yosef, and they say even if it's 2 people are giving the warning, and a different 2 people are the witnesses, nevertheless, you can give the person capital punishment. And so Rabbanan that say that would be equal to Rabbanan in our case of Mosi Shemra, who say you need 23 judges because it is a capital case. And the last and 8th answer to explain the machloket is v'iba'et ema kegon di'it kachush bebedikot ve'la'it kachush b'chakirot. That there's 2 witnesses that came and they saw that this woman sinned after Kiddushin and therefore would be guilty of adultery. Now, when 2 witnesses come, we cross-examine them. We bring one of them and we ask that one lots of questions. We bring the second one in separately and we ask that person lots of questions and we see, do they line up or is there any contradiction? Now, when we ask them questions, there are 2 sets of questions. Some of the questions are called chakirot. That's the main questions about what happened, where, and when. If there is any contradiction about that, then for sure we throw out the testimony, right? They can't disagree about where it happened. One said it happened on the east side, one said the crime happened on the west side. Forget it, we throw them out. That's one set of questions that you have to ask. Then there's bidikot, which are extra questions. These are not questions about the incident, the crime itself, but other things like what was the person wearing, what was in the background, anything else that happened to be circumstantial. If they disagree on those things, then what do? That is the subject of a machloket, whether it's okay if they have some disagreement regarding the incidental bidikot, as long as they agree on the chakirot. V'kami palge b'plukta de ben zakai v'Rabbanan ditnan maaseh u'badak ben zakai be'ukse te'enim. And so the machloket between Rabbi Meir and Chachamim will parallel that between Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakai and the Chachamim in a different case, as a Mishnah coming up later, where there was a certain crime. 2 witnesses saw the crime, and now they're cross-examining the witnesses. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai is asking them about details of how big was the stem of the figs of the fig tree behind the people who committed this sin, and it's a capital case. And so they disagreed about the exact size and shape of the stems of the figs. And based on that discrepancy, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai threw the case out. Right? So he was, you could say, very machmir in the level of testimony that you need, or you could say very mekel, lenient in getting people off the hook doing this. So according to Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, even if there's a disagreement, a contradiction between the 2 witnesses regarding bidikot, we throw out the case. And this Mishnah is talking about exactly such a case when 2 witnesses saw that she sinned with another man. And when they asked them lots of questions, not about the crime itself, but other things about bidikot, according to Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, then if there's any contradiction, we throw out the case. That is the opinion of Rabbi Meir. And therefore, Rabbi Meir says, we're talking about a case like that, where we throw out the witnesses, and therefore there's no capital case, but it's only a monetary case. That's why he says you only need 3 judges. Whereas Chachamim, who disagreed with Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, says, no, even if there's a contradiction in bidikot, we can still accept the witnesses, as long as they line up for the chakirot. A small disagreement in the bidikot is okay. And therefore they would say in this case also, even if there was a small disagreement regarding the bidikot of these 2 witnesses regarding the adultery case, we would still try it as a capital case, and therefore they say we need 23 judges. Next, Rav Yosef brings a couple of laws about testimony. Amar Rav Yosef, Hebi habal edim shezinta, ve'hebi ha'ab edim ve'zimum le'edeh habal, edeh habal neheragin ve'en mishalamin mamon. If the husband, after the wedding night, he finds no betulim, and he brings witnesses that testify that she committed adultery after their kiddushin, and because of that testimony, there will be two consequences. Number one, if she is found guilty, that will be capital punishment for her. And furthermore, he will not have to pay the 200 in the ketubah. So that's two consequences. Now, the father of the wife, of the bride, brings witnesses of hazama and say the first two witnesses could not have seen that act of adultery on the day that he said that it happened because they were in a bowl game in Chicago, and therefore they could not. They are false witnesses. Now, what happens to that first set of witnesses that the husband brought? They were trying to do two things. They were trying to make give capital punishment to the woman, and also they were going to make her lose out on her full amount of ketubah. So, do those edim, the liars, the first two, get both punishments? The answer is no, because the principle kimle midrabamine, that when someone is deserving of two punishments for the same thing, they only get the greater one. And therefore, the first set of witnesses will get capital punishment because they tried to give capital punishment to the woman, but they do not have to pay for the reduction in the ketubah amount that they also tried to do because capital punishment is greater. Now, continuation of the same story. Chazar vehebi habal edim vehezimum le'adeh ha'av. Adeh ha'av neheragin u'mishalamin mamon lazeh unfashot lazeh. If then the husband brings a third set of witnesses that are adeh hazama to the second set of witnesses that the father brought, and the third set of witnesses say, you could not have seen the first set of witnesses with you in the ball game in Chicago because actually those two sets of the second set of witnesses were with us in a hockey game in Canada. And therefore, the second set of witnesses themselves are liars. And now they are going to have to pay the consequences of whatever they tried to do. And since they tried to cause the first set of witnesses to have two punishments, although they don't actually get the two punishments, only one, but nevertheless, that's what they tried to do. So the second set of punishments actually do get both punishments. This is a big chidush. And the reason is because the punishments go to different people. They are on account of different people. So the second set of witnesses are killed because they tried to kill the first set of witnesses. So that's one direction. But they also have to pay money. Why? Because if they were, once the first set of witnesses are found to be false, then that's called mosi shem ra. And that's showing that the husband's claim was false. If a husband brings a false claim regarding dam betulim, then the husband has to pay to the father 100 shekel. So they tried to make the husband pay 100 shekel also. So therefore, the second set of witnesses have to pay that 100 shekel on that account. So because one of the punishments is because of what they tried to do to the husband, and the different different punishment, the capital punishment, is because of what they tried to do to the woman. So therefore, that's two different, what they tried to do actually to the first sets of witnesses, right? The second set of witnesses tried to make the first set of witnesses get capital punishment and also make the husband pay. But that's the people that would receive those punishments on account of the second set of witnesses were two different parties. And therefore, that's considered like two different acts. And therefore, the second set of witnesses, once they are found to be edeh hazama by the third set, actually get both capital punishment and they have to pay. Ve'amad Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef says another law about witnesses and testimony. Piloni riba'o leonso, hu ve'ached mistarefin lehorgo. If someone rapes homosexually another person, the victim comes and testifies, right? Piloni riba'o leonso, so that the victim and another person who saw it can join together to be the witnesses. Even though he's the victim of the crime, he also was present and witnessed it. So he can join together together with one other person. You don't need two separate people. The victim himself can be a witness. That's case one. That's a simple case. Lirsona. Here's the more interesting case. Let's say the victim was not raped, but was consensual. Rashahu. Then he committed a sin. And the Torah says that someone that commits a sin, an evil person, cannot also be a witness, and therefore he cannot testify about that case. So therefore, in that case, in order for anyone to get punishment, you need two separate people, not the perpetrator and it's not a victim, it's consensual, not the receiver either, but rather two other people would have to testify, and then both of those people would get punished. That's the opinion of Rav Yosef. Rava, however, disagrees. Rava Amar, Adam karov esel asmo, ven Adam mesim asmo rasha. He says a person is related to himself, and just like you can't give a testimony about your brother or your father, you can't give testimony about yourself. That's a basic principle. A person cannot make himself into a wicked person. If someone comes and says, I did this terrible thing, we don't believe them. I committed a murder. We don't believe them. We don't accept that testimony. And therefore, when it's consensual, that the receiver, he comes and says, yes, I had homosexual relations with that person. In that case, we accept his testimony half, but not the other half. We do not accept his testimony regarding himself. And so we say, well, no, you can't. Your testimony is invalid regarding yourself. And so the person saying the testimony will not get punished. However, he can testify about the other guy that was involved in the act, and therefore the testimony regarding the other guy is valid. And so either one of the two that are sinning can join with a third person who was just standing by and watching to be a witness against the other person. And so that's Rav's chidush, that palginan dibura, we can split their testimony and say it's invalid for himself, even though he's testifying about an act that both have to be doing in order for it to be an act. Nevertheless, we can split it and say we don't accept it for himself, but we will accept it for the other person. Baruch Adonai Leolam, Amen ve'amen.